It's 7 o'clock, we get started. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item tonight will be to approve the agenda pending any changes.
There are no changes to the agenda at this time.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Good enough.
Who has the second, Mike?
Yeah.
Mr. Wendell and Mr. Wolf, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next item will be good news, recognitions, and announcements.
Yes, we actually, for those joining us via Facebook Live this evening, as well as those in person here, the personnel, we have a pleasant new, I guess it's going to be a pleasant new way of providing the good news announcements and recognitions, wanting to try to get some of our many fine students across the district involved as much as possible and highlight some of their talents. So we spent some time, and Mr. Pope worked with some of the students, and this is going to be our first take, which hopefully will become a monthly event. And our good news announcements and recognitions will be provided to you via Facebook video. Time now to highlight all of the good news items from around the district this past month. First, though, I want you to meet Lily Brickhouse, the Festus High School January Student of the Month.
Hi, my name is Lily Brickhouse. I am the January Student of the Month at Festus High School. My mom, her name is Jennifer Brickhouse. My dad is Mike Brickhouse. It's an honor. I was excited because I got it on Christmas break, so seeing that was a good way to start my 2021 year. I'm involved in Stuco. I've been involved for 2 years now. I am my class treasurer as of right now, and I've been in Renaissance for 3 years. I play volleyball for 4 years, varsity all 4, track for 4 years, and then soccer for 2. My favorite class is gym because I can go to that and see my friends and hang out and go bowling and stuff. It's fun. So I'm planning to go into ROTC. I'm undecided what college I want to go to right now, but I plan to do 2 years at community college to get my A+, and then finish out and study dentistry.
We're back here now with Lily for the rest of the good news.
2 Festus wrestlers achieved 2 big milestones this month. First, Luke Shaver became the winningest wrestler in Festus Tiger program history. He currently has 158 wins. And Andrew Nowak became just the 4th wrestler in program history to achieve 100 career wins. He currently has 115 wins in his school career, thus 2 wins shy of moving into 3rd place on the all-time list. Both of them have several more meets left in the season to pick up more wins.
We also want to give a shout out to 7th grader Rosalie Tedford. Rosalie entered a recent essay contest put on by the VFW, and she won 2nd place for her essay on what patriotism meant to her. Congratulations, Rosalie.
A large number of students in 1st through 11th grades, their parents, and several teachers gave up part of their day off to serve the community on Martin Luther King Day. They worked on Mount Zion Cemetery as part of their Hidden in Plain Sight Innovative Technology Education Fund Grant. Mr. Tim Ogle with the Jefferson County Historical Society taught the group how to properly clean historical headstones. He also taught them how to find headstones that could be buried and to locate unmarked burial locations. Through the project, students and teachers are working to revive a piece of Jefferson County history. They intend to restore old markers and locate and map unmarked burial plots.
I want to give congratulations to all of our students at Festus Elementary that were December Terrific Tigers. The word of the month was service.
The district's next AMIX Day will be Wednesday, February 3rd. This will be a virtual learning day for all students in the Festus R6 school district. This will be the first of 2 scheduled AMIX days during the 3rd quarter.
And that's a look at this month's good news, recognitions, and announcements.
That was fun. Good. Look at that. Awesome.
Very nice. Very nice. Is that gonna be the new? I like that. Good.
Me too.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that item? The next item then will be to approve the consent agenda, so I entertain a motion followed by any discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Anderson,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Wolk. Dr. Luttrell, any comments?
See, a very, pretty brief consent agenda. I had some items we're gonna put, then I moved them down to some, prior new business to get a little bit more discussion on. But again, really, just again, a financial report. I'll talk a bit more about that later, my superintendent's report. But again, we had our December, January, and February are definitely our largest months for local tax collection from the county in terms of people paying their personal property and real estate tax. And so I believe we actually had a payment earlier this week that was a good sum, so we're on good track record with that. Hopefully that will hold. As we reported, I think last month, that our delinquent tax is also up, but that's probably will be corrected because we did have last fiscal year, we did have a couple commercial businesses that protested their amount. Those were settled. The verdict was held for the district. We finally got that payment, but it was on this fiscal year, which helped boost our this year, but it'll be a wash in the end. So other than that, like I said, our financial report I'll report on a little bit later, but it's looking good to see our current money coming in strong. However, as we've said, we still have, almost 50%, a little less than 50% of our funding comes from the state. And we want to make sure that, again, it's going to be kind of a holding our breath every month to see what our payment's going to be. We know they had the large withholdings back at the end of fiscal year 20, and then to start off fiscal year 21. But other than that, that's pretty much this month's consent agenda.
All right, everybody, any questions? None, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'm abstaining.
All right, please note that Mr. Fadler has abstained from this vote. All right, we'll move on now to communications and reports.
Okay, the first one I want to give an update on several items of a wide variety of topics. Just first off, we have completed 13 days of our second semester. Our staffing pattern so far, as you know, held pretty strong. Our enrollment breakdown of our in-seat students versus our online students is as we expected. It did increase our in-seat students to about 88%, and we have about 12% of our student population that's attending virtually online. We do hope to, and would like to continue, especially for fourth quarter, have our online presence decrease. But of course, as you know, like a lot of that will depend on how widely distributed and quickly the vaccine is distributed. And another thing to keep in mind on that vaccine is right now, although things are changing very rapidly, there is no approved vaccine yet for a lot of the children age groups. And so that will definitely, definitely cause some alarm, concern, and rightly so. But we're going to continue to try for fourth quarter to bring as many students as we can that feel comfortable doing so. It is, as we've said, there's no substitute for learning in front of a teacher live. It is a very taxing, and I do appreciate all of our patrons and parents that have been patient, whether your child is learning in seat or online, because as I said, our our staff have really given a very valiant effort day in and day out, putting time in the evenings and on weekends. If everyone had their choices, I know that, we would prefer to go back to pre-March of 20 when, before the descent of COVID. But right now, in this school year, as is everywhere, our students and staff have attempted to make the best of what we've been dealt, and we always continue to strive to give a high quality, regardless of whether you're in seat or online. But hopefully, as I said, moving forward, we can continue to see those numbers on the online decrease as more people become comfortable about sending their children back to school and the vaccine is available. But in the meantime, our mitigation protocols, remain in effect. We still have pretty much limits on how many attendance we have at some of our co-curricular events. We have our daily deep cleaning throughout the day that our staff conducts, our custodial staff, our evening crews. The one thing that I'm still kind of grappling with, I'm not certain yet when we might reopen our facilities, for rental or use by outside groups and organizations. I just don't want to rush into it real quick. Trying to be optimistic. We've had some smaller groups, like we've had some smaller groups that have in the past, in the springtime, have used our facility to have like a neighborhood covenant meeting, with their association. We haven't denied those. We've kind of said, look, we're going to kind of take it tentatively, and we'll kind of see once we get into March and April what the landscape is looking like. But again, we also, as you know, we have a lot of outside groups that use our facilities for a variety of focus, and we want to continue partnering them, and we want to make sure that we do it safely. And those questions continue to come to us, and we will continue to address them. But at some point, hopefully, we can start opening our activities up to more individuals, as well as have some of our external groups be able to use our facilities. We have had many of our extracurricular groups, especially in the fine arts, their competitions have just been eliminated because of the social distancing factor. I know that there's discussions about trying to have some of those resume at some point in the spring, so we're watching that closely because we do want to keep, to the extent as we can keep students and staff safe, keep them motivated and their interest as well. Another side effect that we're kind of also handling with and discussing, it looks like, the COVID will likely impact to a small degree the municipal election that we have in April. And by that I mean simply, as you know, that many public locations are used as polling sites, and that is no different. Our facilities have at times been used for polling sites, and what has not been a problem, but this year especially, we need every amount of space in our buildings to be able to social distance for our students and staff, and so we're working with our government officials, but it looks like we may have to take a pass on this spring's municipal election. It'll be a small turnout anyway, likely. That's when you usually have your city council, school elections, other boards. But we'll kind of see how that goes. But right now, it does look like we have to take a pass. It was not an issue in last April, because when we had the April election last year, it got postponed because of COVID. We were not in session. And then they moved it to June. We were not in session. We did not have summer school going, so it was not a problem. The November election, we had already had that day not to be in session because we knew that's always a large turnout at the presidential election. So, but this April, it is kind of presenting some obstacles, and it's probably going to be best that if we can work with our government and take a pass this time, with the understanding that hopefully, like I said, we will be able to return, in the future. But we have been having that discussion, just want to make you aware of that.
Dr. Ochoa, just real quick, and maybe I should have asked this question a long time ago, but when the county, when anybody holds an election and we provide a polling place, do they provide us with insurance?
Yes. Yes,
So-
we could, yeah, they're always, they're covered on that part of it. We're covered on that end of it. They do not, we do not, typically, we're not allowed to, charge any fee or whatever.
Okay, well, I think like going forward, even beyond April, I think we need to have something put in these insurance policies where we cannot be held liable for someone contracting the COVID or any other virus
Very good point.
at a
Yeah.
school property, because, I mean, I kind of thought the politicians were gonna put that in place where they were gonna limit liability for exposure, but I don't know if that's gonna happen or not. So I think we need to, if they don't do that, we need to
Definitely.
get something, some kind of rider like, where, we're indemnified against anything along those lines. I don't know, just something I think we should really consider.
The,
I mean, I see there's no difference in asbestos, right?
yes. No, I understand completely, that's valid points. Also, as I said, the vaccine, a lot of vaccine specifics are still not known. We're continuing to work with Jefferson County Health Department and take guidance from them, as well as the state. The big concern now, it just seems to be, the information we're getting is that, again, it's just any health group having large quantity of the vaccine. They're not really finding out until like the day before how many they might have for the next day. And we're still trying to find out if our health staff could be approved to be a vaccine site just for our staff, okay? But again, that information's kind of very fluid, and actually heard today, not wanting to be a downer, but I heard today from a pretty reliable source, it's in a much closer contact group of health professionals that were saying that they necessarily do not anticipate wide-scale distribution, even for the categories, some of the ones in terms of educators, possibly until March. So and they, in fact, they were encouraging that any educator that might qualify for also an underlying health condition, that maybe that they go ahead and get signed up and try to go ahead and get that, rather than trying to sit back and maybe just, okay, I'll get it as soon as it comes, when it could be a while. The other key piece when I talked about funding earlier is that we're still trying to get official notification as to whether or not, as a district, we will receive additional funds, through the recently passed COVID-19 CARES Act that was passed, I think it was in late December, early January. Within that act that was passed, there was approximately $54 billion that is supposed to be allocated for K-12 education across the country. Of course, there would be restrictions on how those funds could be used. So hopefully we will know soon from DESE if that's going to happen, as well as how they're going to use it. They could backload the formula. As we know, the formula is, when I said, while our local tax collection is strong, we know because of the withholdings that they've done already within the state this fiscal year, because of their revenues being down, that right now the state formula is only being funded. This month, our payment was basically 93% of what we would normally get if we had had 100%. And just to give you an idea, if that holds through for the year, every 1% of the formula is approximately $130,000 in revenue to Festus. So one way or the other, 93% to 100, that's over $800,000, which pays a lot of operations here. So again, hopefully we'll know more, and we'll keep you updated. But hopefully that will come into clear focus within the next 4 or 6 weeks, because that will be huge and it will be welcome to help plug some of our shortcomings that are presently within our budget. A couple other items, a lot going on. You know, it is the time we have to start thinking about the class of 2021 commencement graduation. Right now, again, it's the tentative week. We don't have a specific day, but we're looking at the tentative week. We're looking at somewhere around the May 24th through the May 28th. Similar to last year, we would look at probably having outdoor dates with rain backup dates. The only thing is that we just don't, we'll probably have three nights, because it doesn't look like, at least for now anyway, Jefferson College has not yet determined whether or not they're going to make their field house available to schools to have those large gatherings. So again, you know, and yet we can only wait so long before we have to make some decisions. So Dr. Schenninger has been working with staff and students at the high school trying to figure out a plan. The other thing that's coming into play with that, and I know I'm going to jinx it here, that right now the regular end of the school year for all students, regardless of what grade you're in, is set for the, I believe it's the 20th of May, which is a Thursday. And normally by this time, as you know, we have usually missed, you know, 2 or 3 days of school, and we've already, you know, pushed that back into that next week, which would be fine. But, you know, it's a good thing that Mother Nature's been kind. But if we were to chance miss only 1 or 0, and everybody's gone, everybody's out that week of having graduation the following week, not that we couldn't have it and would not have it, and it does present some challenges because, again, we've got a lot of staff, you know, are gone, they're out, and so, you know, with the band and different things, but we'll still make it work. But we're hoping that by within the 2 or 3 more weeks, we'll be able to know what winter's doing, and we can really lock in and zero in on those specific dates. What about that Dr. Schenninger is on top of that. Another discussion going on outside of graduation involves prom. Usually by this time we know exactly the venue we're going, the tickets are going on sale, everyone's already got their dress and their tuxedo. The problem again, like everything, a lot of those big venues don't even know if they're going to be able to hold a gathering depending on where it's at, what county. So our sponsors, our staff want to do something special for our students. We know that they want it, they missed it last year. So they're having some discussion. I did put an attachment with this item. They're thinking right now they're going to do some more surveying, talk with students, parents, but they're looking at maybe doing something in April, May that would be more of an outdoors thing over at the stadium, kind of do a grand march walk along the track. Parents could come into the stands, watch that. They could be announced, do the king and queen. Then after that, they could change their shoes if they wanted, and go down to the field, and there'd be an array of things down there, whether it be maybe some food trucks, an area with the field to dance, you know, some other activities, but all that's still coming into focus. But we're just trying to figure out something. But hopefully, again, we're hoping that by early March, at the latest, that plan will also be into focus. Kindergarten registration. Okay, again, last year, you know, we had kindergarten registration right before the pandemic hit, which was good. Our kindergarten enrollments, not only in Festus but across the country, are down this year. And probably that is due to the fact many parents just maybe didn't feel comfortable sending a 5-year-old, and, you know, really for a 5-year-old, you know, to learn virtually, that's tough. So they may have just held them out. We don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see how many come through registration. But we have 2 screening dates coming up, February 3rd and Wednesday, March the 3rd. The big change this year is that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has encouraged districts to move to a consistent screening tool. It's called the Dial 4, which is more of a standardized screening tool. In the past, districts kind of did their own screening tool. took about 10 or 15 minutes. You know, can you hop, can you jump, can you skip, you know, can you say your name, something pretty, some general screenings. Well, now, the dial 4 is a little bit more, in-depth. It does, whereas the old screenings would take 15 or 20 minutes, the new one is expected to take about 45 minutes per student. We do, however, have our parents as teachers, educators that are part of the consortium that we're involved in with Crystal City, Dunklin, and Jefferson R7. There's about 8 or 10 of those educators that are going to be here, and they're going to be conducting the screenings for us. They're also going to be, a lot of those students have already been in the Parents as Teachers program. They'll do those as well for those students. So, I mean, we think it's going to work well. We've already have, I think it was yesterday, we've been advertising it, it's in the paper today. We advertised it on our website. We've had it through social media, and parents can simply click. They can go take them, and they can find a place, an appointment time on those days, and then we will schedule another time another time later on this spring for those that wanted to make one of those two. But again, I know that talking to Dr. Roos, Dr. Seifert, even late yesterday or this morning, the appointment times were already rolling in. Parents were definitely, signing up. So that'll be on the horizon. We have to keep, despite COVID, keep moving and forward planning. We're on the topic of young children and kindergarten enrollment. I want to talk a little bit for a minute about, if you remember, part of Proposition F did include the creation and establishment and implementation of an early childhood education program for children ages 3 and 4. That plan initially was always, because there's so much in-depth planning involved, to have that program ready to implement and start with the 2023-24 school year. However, I had hoped and was hoping that we could be aggressive and push that to the 22-23 school year. However, we actually had Dr. Roos, who's leading that process, had some preliminary individuals convened to kind of come together for a committee last February, March to start that planning process. And then COVID hit, everything kind of got moved to the back burner. She's starting that process up again now, and so that we can get a committee together, answer some critical questions. In fact, we're hoping that by the time they meet a couple times in February, March, April, I'm hoping that she can come at some point here in April, May, or May and June, sometime to one of our meetings when she's here, and give an update on how that process is going and where that timeline's at. A couple critical questions that have to be answered right off the bat. With that involve location, for the facility. Are we going to take a location on campus, add on? Are we going to build something new? Are we going to maybe buy a location within the community somewhere and renovate it? We also then have to decide in terms of, in addition to the facility, that what's going to be the scope of the program. It is for 3 and 4-year-olds, but there is a distinct difference between the early childhood education program and just a preschool program. There's a big difference. We're looking at the early childhood program, and while we are mandated already to serve by statute the special needs students, those young special needs students. So we have to decide then is how many students are we going to serve. Very rarely will you find a district that's just universal to serve every 3 and 4-year-old. Again, it depends on space in that. But then do you do a half day if you're going to serve 100 kids, or if you're going to serve 50 kids? Are you going to serve all day long? Or are you going to serve 25 in the morning, 25 in the afternoon? I mean, you got a lot of questions that have to be answered, and then devise in terms of what your curriculum is going to be, what your staffing needs are going to be. That we are on that. It's just going to be a long process. That we are going to, and what people know, we have not forgotten about that. I do get phone calls and emails occasionally about that, and rightly so. That that process is going to be getting back underway, and you should have a report from, like I said, Dr. Roos in more detail sometime late spring. Okay, and then I want to admit that the filing for the Board of Education closed at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 19th. There were 4 individuals that followed for the Tuesday, April the 6th election, which I talked about earlier. Those individuals were Mr. Marcus Genova, Mr. Mike Woke, Mr. Doug Wendell, and Mrs. Mary Renner. The 2 incumbents, Mr. Mike Woke and Mr. Doug Wendell, and then the 2 individuals that are also on the ballot, as I said, Mr. Marcus Genova and Mrs. Mary Renner. So those will be the individuals that are vying for the 2 positions that will be up and part of the ballot on April the 6th. So that's my superintendent.
Okay, anybody have questions?
I have one question. So, just you spoke of, the different things on prom or graduation, that kind of stuff. Has there been any discussions at all about carrying on with a homecoming that we didn't have in the fall? I see some other schools are planning theirs over the winter time.
I know that earlier that last fall, they had talked, there was some discussion about that, about, trying to see what the landscape was like in the winter and doing something as part of, but I don't know what the latest discussion is. I can check and let everyone know.
Okay, other questions?
Just one, Dr. Littrell, who's on the committee for the preschool or early childhood?
That is,
Is that comprised of, not names,
Yeah.
just,
no, that group is good. It's still kind of, it was just getting formed last
Right.
spring. But it's mainly, we have a couple community people, parents, and then we've asked, of course, a couple of our principals, Dr. Seifert, as well as Mrs. Banach. We've got also some of our counselors, and we've also asked staff as a whole, some of the elementary staff and them,
right,
that have expertise, especially those kindergarten, first,
Right.
secondary teachers, to
God
know what those
bless
critical
them.
needs are. So it's kind of a pretty
good
broad committee, but like as I said, it's being facilitated and led by Dr. Roos.
Thank you.
Other questions? None? Okay. We'll move on then to prior new business. The first item is to approve E-rate recommendations for 21-22.
Yes, and E-rate is always an annual, again, it's a program administered through the federal government, and every year we get able to submit some expenditures for approval. It's a match, and so Mr. Bauman is here this evening, and he is going to come and keep a safe distance from everyone, but he's going to kind of tell you and walk you through some of the items, the bids he received, how he selected a final vendor. So, Mr. Bauman?
Sure. Do you want to do each individually or do them all at once?
It's yours.
Okay.
It's yours.
We'll just start with internet. Well, to preface what Dr. Littrell said, our current discount with E-rate is a 60% discount, so our out-of-pocket is a 40% payout of the prices listed in this, in the items here. These purchases will not take place until after July 1. So I just have to get the paperwork in with the federal government now to start the process of getting approvals. So first, the internet, our current contract with Charter is up in June. We currently have 1 gig connection. We are seeing sustained traffic that over the next 3 years, I think we would grow beyond that 1 gig connection. So I want to move to a 2 gig connection. We had 2 responses, one from Charter, one from AT&T. AT&T's bid response included, unfortunately, about $29,000 worth of install fees. So Charter, their infrastructure is already here. Their fees are a monthly fee, $2,080 a month. So they were actually even on a month-to-month cost comparison, they were cheaper than AT&T anyway without the $29,000 install fee. So my recommendation is to execute a contract with Charter for a term of 3 years, the cost of $2,080 a month, again, pre-discount, for 2 gig internet. Moving on to firewall. So by increasing our internet connection, I'll need to increase our firewall capacity to handle the additional traffic. We had 6 bids in response. The cheapest bid was for a FortiGate 200F firewall from PDS. PDS is a vendor that we do quite a bit of business with for $5,937, one-time fee. So I recommend that we execute a purchase agreement with PDS for that FortiGate 200F for $5,937. The next item were two switches and a UPS. These items will be allocated to the high school, to the Performing Arts Center, and it will be to offer support or offer connection to devices in the Performing Arts Center, including phones, access points, computers, pretty much that infrastructure in that end of the building. We had 10 responses. The lowest bid that met all of the requirements was hardware that we have experience with, was from PDS for two Aruba 2930M switches and a UPS for $8,815. So again, I recommend the bid from PDS for those two switches in the amount of $8,815. Final item is a wireless replacement. This is the wireless infrastructure at the high school. Last year, if you remember, we did the wireless infrastructure at the other 3 buildings. So this will bring the high school to match the infrastructure at those other 3 buildings. We have, and it also includes 16 new access points in the Performing Arts Center. We had 6 bid responses. The lowest vendor, PDS, quoting hardware that matches the other 3 buildings in the amount of $47,729. Any questions?
There's an advantage to having it match the platforms and all the other buildings,
Yeah.
even though they're not connected, or?
Correct. Well, they are kind of connected, but the biggest advantage to having everything the same is that it's in one system for me to administer. If it was a different system, and you can see that there was a lower bid for a different system, but that would be another management console that I'd have to get in to make changes. So currently now, I can get into one management console,
Make changes district-wide.
and it happens in every building immediately.
Makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference, yeah, for time anyway, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I'm making a motion to approve the E-rate presentation as presented.
I'll second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Ms. Beresowski, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. Next item is the Series 2021 lease financing resolution.
Yes, last month in December, we had a representative from George K. Baum, Joe Kinder, that had presented us some, financing information as we look to refinance some of our leases from 15 and as well as 2018, as well as then capitalize on some of the savings we can make by that refunding, and then enhance some of our needs that we have within the district in terms specifically with some of the other projects that we know that we want to do that are outside of the scope of some of our larger projects that we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is just a resolution that basically kind of explains what the process will involve, why we are doing it, and that essentially the information will allow us then, when Mr. Joe Kinder comes next month in February, and actually will have specific dollar information, rate information. It also allowed us to be able to already do preliminary work. Anytime you do a lease financing, you have to have a rating call with Standard & Poor's. We had that last week. Mr. Holder was able to really do a very good job providing the key financial information that they wanted, as well as insight on our strength of our district, as well as our community in terms of student population growth, property tax assessments. And so we should hope to have sometime, I think, next week, the final from Standard & Poor's of what rating we're going to have for our lease purchase bonds. We're kind of, like I said, excited because, again, the interest rates now just continue to be extremely attractive, and we hope that we can have next month some final numbers to put in for you all to consider. And this also was put, has been as required by Standard, put in, it ran in the leader back in late, I think it was late December, early January.
Earlier this month.
So, Mr. Holder, you have anything you want to add on that, on the resolution or anything? It doesn't require any.
It does, we do need to approve it. And basically this just authorizes, as Dr. Luttrell said, the mechanics of the refinancing, or the refunding of the 2015 and 2018, and then what will be the 2021 lease financing. The current refunding and then the new money for the project. This approval then, combined with the rating that we should receive next week, will allow them to market this, to allow us to get the best rate, and then they will come back to us at the February meeting for the final approval.
So I'll need a motion to approve the resolution which approves the project as presented and directing refunding of the refunded certificates, correct?
Yes.
Would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to approve Series 2021 lease financing resolution approving the project and directing in the refunding of the refunded certificates.
Second.
All right, Ms. Anderson and Mr. Abrams at the second. Any other questions on that? Anything else we need to know about? Other details, Mr. Holder? This is pretty much what you said.
Yes, and as Mr. Kinder presented last month, the 2015 term will remain the same. The 2018 will be extended out. There's significant interest savings on the 2018. And then the interest that we'll get on the new money portion of the $3 million, we should just see a fantastic rate for that project. And just as a reminder, that this will not hamstring us for future projects that could come up, in the next year for consideration, the next 12 to 18 months. The approval of this does not hamstring us in any way.
Okay. Anyone have questions, other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries, and I will sign that resolution. When we get it pending. Okay. Let's see, next item will be the facilities report.
The ball field complex, as you know, is progressing. 95% of the rock has been removed. There's still some that they drill for lights, for the setting of the light poles, and that the footings for the dugouts, grandstand dugouts, are going to be poured soon. And if there's still, quite a bit of work still to do, is again, the project is not slated to be completed until around July of 2021. I think I put 2020 in my note there, but in July of 2021, in time for the fall softball and activity season. The Performing Arts Center also seeing a lot of progress, mainly due to our outstanding weather. If you've driven by there, there's been a lot of it. You can see a lot of the exterior brickwork. And also the largest area in that facility, this facility is about 28,000 square feet. The largest area of that is the auditorium area and the stage, and that area is about 95% under roof at this point. There's still a lot of masonry work. The one thing that we got to keep in focus is that while there are still subs that are doing work, masonry is a critical path at this point. And again, even if the masonry is typically that they want, the mix and that to take well, they want a temperature, above freezing, 34, 35 degrees, ideally. So if it's a day that's sunny, no precip, but the temperature never warms up, to that range, the masons typically will not work. And so that, while other subs may work. And so we have to kind of keep that in mind a little bit as we kind of move forward. But they're making a lot of progress, and again, they're doing, it's going to see that come forward, especially if Mother Nature continues to be kind with the winter weather. The next week, we're starting to look at, as we said, some of our summer projects outside the large ones. We've got some bid meetings coming up in the next couple weeks on some bathroom renovations in a couple of our buildings. We have added security vestibules at each school site in recent years. We did the intermediate last year. The one school that does not really have a true security vestibule is the high school. We would like to try to do that. The one thing I want to point out about the security vestibule at the high school is a little bit different than some of the other buildings, simply because if you remember when we did the one at the intermediate school last year, we expect the cost for the high school to be considerably higher, simply because the fact that the way when you go in at the high school, you always also have an interest to go into the office. Well, as soon as you go into the area where that vestibule would be, where a door would likely go, normally, it's right into the principal's office, and not the actual, outer office. So you have to extend that further back to make it work, and so it's going to require a little bit. So I mean, that cost for that will probably be, it's going to be higher. I don't know yet how much higher, but it's going to involve, it's not as easy of a addition as we were able to do at the intermediate last year. And we are bidding that out. We also may have to replace the section of the roof. Small section, I think, Mr. Holden, what area did you say that serves? It's over by the...
It's just a small section that's over the current existing high school office, as well as the teacher's lounge and part of the restroom area.
And then we also looking at, over at the high school, renovation of the amphitheater there, since now we have a performing arts center, and making that more of a multi-purpose room that you can do pom and dance practice. You can do wrestling practice, as opposed to having to maybe go to the cafeteria. Right now, our wrestlers have to go to the middle school to practice. Also, I think I mentioned to you, actually, it doesn't seem that long, but this is the 10th year that we have had our wrestling program. And they've done really well. They go to the middle school, and there's been talk, and I think, once we get out of COVID, we need to look at, they've been very patient, and most of our other high school programs have a middle school feeder program. And I think, it's time for us to look at that. And if we were able to get the multi-purpose room, fitted properly there, we could have the high school wrestlers, use that room for their practices. And then if we were to start a middle school wrestling program, they would have the place where the high school typically is now at the middle school. So, but again, just a lot of moving parts, but always planning and trying to always think. We're also going to look at, we've done a lot of work at the intermediate school the last few years. They're looking great, but the one area that we haven't is the actual, we're going to replace the carpet in the intermediate school office area. We're probably going to paint it, probably redo some of their countertops, a little bit of furniture like we've done in some of the other office areas. And we're getting costs on that. And then we also have at the middle school, one of the big green units that is pretty aged, and we are going to get costs and looking to replace it. So those are some of the summer projects. And then any questions on any of that before I go down to my last item? Okay. You heard me talk a lot about Proposition F tonight, about the early childhood education program, and about the performing arts center progress. Another component of Proposition F included, the construction, design of a district wellness center, activity center, field house, whatever you want to call it, seat about 2,000, 2,100, have a track, our classes could use it, open to the community. With the Performing Arts Center now well underway, slated for completion October 21, we know that took a long time to plan, and we, it kind of did some preliminary planning even before April of 19. So you're always gonna be 2 or 3 years out. So what I'd like to do is we need to start beginning now, turning our attention to design in terms of, and to start figuring out what type of inside that wellness center is gonna have. And we need to, if possible, convene, some of the critical personnel, coaches, teachers, principals that would most use that space, and work with our architects. But it's talking with the architects. It's good. Again, it'll take a good 12 to 14 months from the time you start just designing. By the time you start designing, have all the discussions, get feedback. By the time they get the bid documents developed, by the time those go out for bid, by the time you get it in, you're looking 12, 14, 15 months. So I was kind of trying to put a timeline together, and if I could get the green light to go ahead and work with our architect on starting that planning process with the idea that ideally, if we could have most all the design work and specs and everything done, where we could maybe be in position to look at cost and see if we're in a position to approve a general contractor for that in like April, March, preferably March of 22, which would be a year, about, again, 12, 14 months from now. Then that would be slated for the work to begin then in the summer of 22, and then you're looking at, again, another 12, 14 months of work. So you, even starting now, you're still going to be into the 23, 24 school year before that would even be. So I mean, what I would like to, unless there's just, there's some other views, I mean, I'd like to get some guidance as to whether there's agreement to maybe start that process moving forward, or do you just want to kind of hold back at this point? It's only going to get more, it's never going to get cheaper.
No.
No, and we campaigned for that, so I mean,
I would
A lot
proceed
of people
ahead.
voted for that.
yes,
Yeah, we need
exactly.
to go ahead and
So
proceed.
I think you need to
Yeah.
do what you think.
Sounds like everybody's on board to
Yeah.
move forward.
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get that going, and I know there's a lot of people will be excited about that as they have been on our other projects. So, President, that's all I have on the facility report.
Okay, does anyone else have anything else for open session before we move to closed session?
I have just a quick question. With that, where the Performing Arts Center is going in now, is there going to be any additional parking kind of where that staging area is now, or is that all just going to be approached to the building? I don't recall what the plans showed.
On the west wind side,
No, on this side of the Performing Arts Center, on the back side where all the construction equipment is staging, is there going to be more of a parking lot area in there when it's all done, or is
I
that?
think there's still supposed to be a drive through there.
I think there's another tier there, Doug.
Is there, I didn't remember if it was just a driveway or if there was extra parking there or not.
I know there's a drive, I don't know, because I know there's still gonna be on the front side, that whole cul-de-sac. I'll check.
And then is there, if we start going forward with this, once we're starting to look forward to this wellness center, is there gonna be any more parking
Yes.
back that way in relation to that?
Very fluid answer, but yes. A lot of that will depend though on, if you remember the last very high 30,000 level discussion we had on that was, originally, the building was gonna basically be down in the practice area level. But then it got to look at it, because as we just experienced with the ball field, you're gonna have to do footings on a building probably 12, 14 feet below whatever so we know going that far down where we're already at, they're gonna hit probably massive rock. And so then they moved it to where they thought, well, maybe they could go up top and kind of behind where the athletic office is now, the mix between the intermediate school and the high school. And then that would leave, then they could put the way the building would come out, there would be plans to put parking, because we also would have to have space for our buses and that, pickup and that. So if that would be our premise, we would want that, and I believe, yes, that that'll be something, a lot of that would depend on, at the end, whether they keep it up top or we go down low. Right now, they think it's going to be more economical to go up top.
And the only reason I ask is because I know we just built a really nice new parking lot over there, and I know workers are using a big portion of it, but you drive through there in the afternoon and it's over 3/4 full,
Oh, yeah.
if not more already. So it's like we just built a nice big new parking lot, and we're almost outgrown it already.
Definitely keep that focus.
That's all I had, thank you.
All right, other questions? No, I'll entertain a motion with the roll call vote to enter into executive closed session with the closed record and the closed vote pursuant to RSMO 610.021, sections 3 and 13.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Anderson and Mr. Feather, will you pull the board, please, Ms. Stanley?
Mr. Wendell?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Graver?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Reed? Yep.
Okay, we'll take about a 5-minute break and then we'll resume our closed session.